Guys, Eric back to talk about envious people. White t-shirt, tripod, the wheels are on the wagon, everything's under control. It's Sunday, I go to Kung Fu with my family, I wear the white t-shirt. I want to thank my followers for not only for following this channel, but for tolerating my recent string of uploads, which has gone on for like 5 months of micro horror shorts. And a lot of you are probably like, what is going on? Why is he doing this? I'm doing it because I'm preparing for a bigger project. I'm practicing the equipment. So I'm doing these sort of like diet films. I think they're fun. Check them out. Maybe they're not fun. In the meantime, all of you have hung with me. I haven't lost any followers, even though it's been about 5 months since the last Envy video. Boom, here we go. I sort of have to wait for them. I have to wait for the right idea to cross my mind. I'm like, okay, right. Okay, this is a reasonable point to share with the community. I think it's a testament to the fact that you are caring, good people with good intentions, that you would none of you would be like, what is he posting now, and just like leave me forever. Quite the contrary. I see more followers coming in, and thank you for watching this stuff. The channel's not monetized. We're just here to enjoy communicating, in particular about envious people, and I'm glad it's turning into a series of videos. I know a lot of people, or a lot of people by my standards watch them. So very cool, and I appreciate it. Okay, there's 4 words. Today we're going to talk about 4 words that I think in all likelihood, by a fair likelihood, with an exception, which I'm going to go into, signify the reasonable likelihood of an envious person. Sorry for screaming the word likelihood. The 4 words are as follows. Stay in your lane. Happily married, 19 years. We'll talk about it later. Stay in your lane. Now, in all likelihood, to use that word again for some reason, in real life, somebody's not probably going to say that to you face to face. That would be a little corny, cloying, ridiculous if somebody was like, hey, cool it, brother. Stay in your lane. Okay, that person has problems beyond just being envious. That's kind of like a joke, somebody who behaves that way. I'm more talking, obviously, about type text, online arguments, social media crap, which is just increasingly really mind-numbing and demoralizing to talk about. The amount of spats and the level of drama that occurs there. More and more, I'm staying away from it. But generally, if you're going to hear the words, hey, stay in your lane, it's going to be in that medium. But the message is clear. The message is somebody is imparting to you that you're not qualified to participate in a certain conversation or field of endeavor or zone of consideration. So, hey, buddy, you're better off staying in your lane. Go back over there, okay? That's where you belong. Now, before you jump to conclusions and think, oh, ouch, this is a bad one. Eric's off here, because all that's happening here is that Eric got corrected for some crap he didn't know about, and then now he's heard about it and he's turning on his camera and making a video. I want to be clear that this only counts in non-quantifiable fields of endeavor. Non-quantifiable things. In other words, recently, I'll give you a counterexample. Recently, I was on an airplane. I was flying from the East Coast to the West Coast, and the flight attendant came on the loudspeaker and said, is anybody on board a doctor? And that was a little striking. It caused me a little anxiety. There's a 600 to 1 shot, 1/6 of 1% chance that that'll happen on an airplane. Never had happened in my life. I've been on a lot of flights, and boom, there it was. Somebody was having an emergency. So 2 badass women, doctors, stood up from different points in the plane and went to the back of the plane where the problem was, and apparently stabilized it, because we were up there for like 4 more hours. No emergency landing. But it crossed my mind, a couple funny things. Jokes unto myself crossed my mind while this was happening. Number 1 is my nickname among some of my friends is Doctor. So could you imagine if I had said to the flight attendant, hey, a lot of people call me Doctor. Where's the patient? I mean, I would obviously be a goddamn lunatic, and the flight attendant would, at a minimum, have every right to say, sir, why don't you stay in your lane? Okay, so more acutely, a little more realistically, I'm also trained in Reiki healing. I've been certified to administer energy healing to people in the form of Reiki. Now, I'm laughing, but Reiki does work. It's helped me with a lot of things. I know a lot of people it's helped with major things. But could you imagine if on board that airplane I was like, yeah, I practice Reiki. I'm a Reiki practitioner. Where's the patient? They would have every right to say, excuse me, idiot, why don't you consider staying in your lane? Right? I mean, so yeah, it's quantifiable. Even something like Reiki, which, doesn't withstand much scientific scrutiny, but I do think it's real. I would I automatically stay in my lane. So don't get me wrong. This does not apply. If something is quantifiable, like I'm in the film industry, box office numbers come up all the time. Something I see dudes doing all the time is if they hate a movie, they just hate it. They go, flop. It was a flop. But that like a lot of times, like it wasn't a flop. And I'll be there. Like I usually won't correct them because I'm too nice and I don't want to get in the debate. And if I know I'm right, then I just take that as the win. But I'm over there like, no, it actually like profited like $200 million. It wasn't just because you hated it. It wasn't a flop. Maybe I didn't even like it, but that's beside the point. All right. But there's also non-quantifiable fields of endeavor. And this is the envious person's theater of expression is the non-quantifiable. I'll give you an example. I don't want to go too much into it because number one, it's social media oriented, which makes it pathetic. And number two, I don't want to out the person because I like the person a lot. There's an individual who is one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. Hilarious. One of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. And is aware of it. And also has confided in me that when there's another like equally or nearly funny person around, this individual becomes threatened. This is something that has become known to me. So there's a competitive thing, which I can understand is human nature. And I that's not a big deal. But interestingly, I've noticed that on Facebook, where I don't post as much, and I truly don't. I know when people say that, like, oh, I'm not there. I'm not there as much. Usually it means they're in the throes of a really bad addiction. I used to post a lot more. I used to joke around a lot. And I realized that this person had me zoned and contextualized within certain things that I'm more known for, like I write dark fiction, I'm a journalist. There's some more serious things, although they're not without humor, certainly not the way I do them. But I realized when I was joking around, crickets from this person consistently. But when I was solemn and serious, which was probably 50% of the time, boom, first person in with a reaction of total support. And I think over time, like I'm talking about years, the message to me was clear that this person wanted me to stay in my lane. And I want to point out that my shit was funny. Sorry if you hear my kids in the background. I'm not doing another take. My shit was getting, it's not even an ego thing. Like, oh, I'm funny too. My shit was getting reaction. It was quantifiable. You could see it. You could see it. Like, there was not a problem. So this other individual being the one person representative of dissent was obviously like almost undeniably a symptom of their own envy and competitiveness. And in their mind, they don't think that's what's going on. They think that to a science, quantifiably and certainly, they just perceive correctly that I'm not funny at all. Because you know how these envious assholes operate. They self-hypnotize into thinking there's a problem here and it's the other person that makes me crazy. All right. Politics. Ooh, I hate going there. I'm creeped out. I'm going to throw up. Politics. Politics is a tricky one because within the flow, the superhighway of ideas, superhighway, what a dated thing to say. Among politics, there's a lot of factual stuff that goes on, like citing facts and studies and statistics and trends and percentages. That's a big part of the verbiage. Also within politics, however, is there's a lot of vying for elbow room and leverage and advantage when it comes to what is prioritizable in the conversation. That's the big thing with politics. What the main priorities of consideration are and should be. And that's where the stay in your lane people might rear their heads. Like if you're in the middle of a political exchange and the other person, in all likelihood, at a hysterical level of emotion, is imploring you to have the same nexus or hierarchy of priorities within politics as them. And so it goes beyond facts at that point. It goes beyond the quantifiable. They just want you to be approaching the situation with the same value system, which is different. That's not quantifiable. That's just your own priorities, right? And man, I know I'm being very vague and I'm sure any number of things can be projected onto what I'm saying. But the point is if the person in the midst of an exchange like that, where you're vying for elbow room over what is the, I'm tempted to give an example, but it's going to get too charged. What is the main consideration in play here? If they answer with, all right, you know what? You obviously don't know what you're talking about, so why don't you stay in your lane? Because it's clear you haven't done the research and you don't know. They're envious. They're envious. They haven't done the research. They're deficient. They're not there for the actual conversation. They can't offer cogent, constructive, or meaningful counterpoints to what you're actually saying. So their preference is for you to exit the conversation, and their accordant, concurrent insult is that you don't belong there because you're not up to it, when indeed they are not up to it. This person on Facebook that thought they were the funniest person ever didn't have nearly as much fuel in the tank to make as many jokes as I did. They weren't up to it. The productivity level wasn't there. So what did they want as opposed to like digging in and improving their game? They wanted me to shut the fuck up. What does the person in the non-quantifiable area of the political discussion want? Instead of being able to engage in the debate and have it be meritorious, instructive, educational, compassionate, and real, they just want you to close your mouth. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. This was a tricky one to do. I realized I feel a bit exposed in this one. I think I went more egoic and personal than usual, but I'm going to go with it. If people don't like it, I'll delete it. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. They're telling you to stay in your lane in an area that's non-quantifiable. Doesn't just have to be humor. Doesn't just have to be ideology. Doesn't have to be the arts. It can be other things like success, beauty, attractiveness, likability, charm, coolness, who's right. And I'm not talking about facts, just who's right, who has the right perspective. Abstract things, soft things, non-quantifiable things. And within that zone of considerations, you are told by somebody to stay in your lane because they're envious.